Today we're going to catch the fastest man alive as we have a look at the new released Beast Kingdom Justice League The Flash. Like the tactical suit Batman that we've already had a look at, this is also under the banner of Dynamic Action Heroes and Justice League. Flash is product code DAH-006 and comes with a ton of cool accessories, including the lightning bolts you're currently seeing on the figure. Let's quickly grab the tape measure before Flash runs off. Putting it next to the figure itself, he's just a little shorter than being 8 inches in height. How does he stack up next to the tactical suit Batman? Here he is right here. Batman is just a little bit taller, which is accurate. In the movie, Batman is also taller than the Flash, and I think the two go very well hand in hand. Flash gets himself a display base, the same display base that we've seen with the tactical suit Batman. The only difference is, well, in fact, let me reach off. There's the Batman, the tactical suit Batman. You'll see it's the exact same display base. One thing that's cool, though, is other than just having simply the name changed on the front, they've also changed the logos that are featured on the top. Very accurately enough, Batman does have his Bat logo, while the Flash does have the trademark lightning bolt running through there. The display base, not covering, I spent a lot of time on this because we've already looked at this with the tactical suit release, but it does have the ratcheted joint here. It does not rotate, well, I guess it does rotate more so from the way it's just pegged into place, but in that regard, you can rotate this back and forth. This hinges up and down, also can rotate, and you can also open and close these clips, these clamps here. That's going to keep the figure in place. Now, if you want to just museum pose him, Flash stands fine. I don't have any issues. His legs, his ankles, I should say, are a little on the loose side, but I still can get the figure to stand perfectly fine. Now, if you want to get a little bit more creative with his posing, now, of course, if you want to have him more so in like a running pose, bringing the legs forward, you're not going to get much stability from one leg. So, I think for that purpose and that purpose alone, you really would want to make use of the display base. It also keeps the figures consistent with one another. They all kind of look like they're coming from the same company, and I do really like that a lot. I'm likely going to be putting these next to the Batman v Superman figures that we've also had a look at on this channel. If you haven't had a chance to check those out, what happened? You didn't watch those? Go check them out. But there's Flash, and there's the display base that comes with the figure. To Flash's credit, he does actually get a fair share of accessories. Now, currently, I've got him exactly how he came out of packaging with a pair of closed fists. But don't worry, the folks over at Beast Kingdom have given you a whole ton of other options available. Those range from a pair of relaxed hands, and he was wearing fingerless gloves. He does also come included with a pair of running hands, or completely flat palms, if that's so your desired look. And he also does come with the pointing hand. Now, this could be the hand if you wanted to, you can have him pretending as if he's touching the mother box, or simply just touching Wonder Woman's sword as he's running down the that open drop area in the movie. Or simply if you want to just have him running, you can also make use of that hand as well. I do want to bring something to the attention of the hands here, and more so to you, the viewers. I'm gonna grab this hand here. There's really no reasoning other than just the fingers are closer together, so it's easier for me to point out the paint color. One thing I have with the issue, one issue I have with the figure itself, is I don't know why, but the hands are a different color than his face. If I put the hand to Flash's face, you'll see that the fingers are a little on the paler side. I'm not sure if it's simply they just used the wrong paint, or they didn't have enough of this paint to go around, but it is definitely a different color in the face on Flash. Now, you put that on the figure, especially like closed fists, for example, you're not going to see them as much. Perhaps if you are having him in running poses where the hand is closer to Flash's face, you may probably see it a little bit more. But it is interesting. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. The hands do seem like they are a slightly different shade of flesh tone. In fact, rather pale by comparison to, of course, Flash's face. your eyes are, I can see them, your eyes are going over here. What's going on here? Well, Flash gets a whole bunch of really cool lightning effects. Why don't we start with this one first? This is basically just like, it's almost like a fiery, you know, just a wave of fire, but that instead it's electricity. It's made of a translucent plastic, and then you've got the electricity, kind of just the lightning just kind of coming out from that. It's a really neat effect. You could kind of simulate, I suppose, Flash screeching or stopping. Kind of, you could just have that more so in the background, I suppose, if you wanted to. This doesn't quite play into the display base, as there's really no there's no area around the base, I suppose, unless you had it, for example, I'm just going to turn it around here, unless you had it like behind it. That's something you could entertain the idea of doing so. It doesn't quite line up. You can see that there's kind of a gap. It's not completely flat, but it's something you could certainly have in the background of the Flash display stand. So that's pretty cool. Nice, big, bulky. It looks like something that would be absolutely delicious to consume, like a Jolly Rancher candy, but let me just assure you that is just solid plastic, but a pretty cool translucent effect on the lightning here. Then Flash gets himself a whole series of these little electricities, these little shotted areas of electricity that's running around his body as he is running obviously extremely fast in the movie itself. They range in shapes, they range in sizes, and they range in the ways that you can attach them to the figure. There's no real right way to display the figure in which, like, this obvious hate. Well, these ones are a little bit closer. These ones here are just simply ones that can wrap around him. He gets 3 versions of these, and they're all different, like snowflakes, which was later debunked, but they're all different to one another. These are just, this one here, for example, is just like a straight or slightly more straighter version of electricity, and then these ones are a little bit more shaped that you can kind of wrap around his body. I'll show you that in a second. These ones, though, do have almost like a bracelet to them that you can take them and you can attach them to his hand, or at least, at the very least, that's what I think you can do with them. They stay pretty good in place. They will move a little bit on you, and of course mileage may vary. You may not want to put him necessarily in a museum pose or just simply standing like this and have the electricity coming out. Just really doesn't make much sense at all. But if you do want to put him in somewhat of a more creative pose, you can then fit these over top. Now, if you are fighting to get them around the hands, you simply can just untab the hands, take them from the ball joint, fit this on first. And these are softer plastic, so there's a little bit more give, so to speak, to what you can do with them, and then just simply attach the wrist over top of that. Again, this kind of looks ridiculous right now. You spend a little bit more time than what I'm doing just right now to demonstrate what purpose they serve. You could definitely get a little bit more creative with them. But I do like the fact that they do come included with the figure. Let's go ahead and just take that one off. And we'll go ahead and take this one off. Did not want to pop the hand off in the process, but luckily it's just a ball joint, so you just plug that back into place. And then, like I said, for these, there is no instructions necessarily to whereabouts you can put them, but you can kind of just manipulate them until you get the effect that you want. Like, say, for example, this loops its way around. I could clamp that over top of his shoulder, and then I could wrap this around his waist. Again, you can really do whatever you want. You get 3 of these, so there's a lot of play factor happening there. So we'll just kind of move those out of the way. As for the figure itself, I'm going to say this. While I still don't like Flash's costume, and allegedly, talking a little bit more about the Snyder Cut that I referenced in the tactical suit version of Batman, supposedly at the end of Justice League, there's rumor that Flash here does get himself a new costume. This is ideally just something that he's thrown together, makeshifted, if you will, but at the very end, apparently, kind of like Spider-Man, really. Bruce Wayne gives him a brand new Flash costume, and I think there probably would have been a little bit more consistency to the costume. Probably you would have seen a little bit more in the way of reds, as opposed to like the patchwork job that he's done with this initial costume. While I'm not 100% sold on the costume, of the releases that we've seen of this particular character, I have to give it again to Beast Kingdom, they've done a great job not only capturing exactly the look of the character, right down to a little bit of a smirk in the corner of his mouth. The sculpt as well as the paint is done very well here. And I almost hate to sound like a broken record, but this seems like a regular collecting so far, I guess, what, 5 figures that I've collected so far from Beast Kingdom. I mean, the accuracy to the sculpts on these is pretty bang on. So again, you've got a really nice face sculpt there on Flash, making up of different color patterns and textures. The upper plate area is probably a little bit more denser in case he runs into something for obvious reasons. On the side, though, you've got a slightly darker shade of red, and it's slightly a little bit more textured, almost simulating the texturing of almost a basketball. He's still got his trademark Flash fins on the sides, a little less looking like electricity, and a little bit more looking like a boomerang, but even that has been textured in there as well. The rigid or collapsing accordion designs that he's got for the back of the helmet. And you've got some black and darker colors added in there as well. And then you get to the figure's body, which again is just made up of plates, different materials, and of course these strappings that basically make up the majority of his body. Very well translated here, the plastic form. It really is a superior release here of Flash. Now, keeping in mind as well, I've mentioned this on occasion when looking at the Beast Kingdom releases, the figures here are a very surprisingly low price at $60. Or at the very least, that's what I'm finding them at my local comic book store. You know, mileage may vary depending on where you're located in the world. Hello, world, by the way. Depending on where you're located in the world, the prices may be a little higher, maybe a little bit lower, but speaking as somebody who's buying the figures myself from, say, comic book stores, Beast Kingdom, from what I've seen price-wise, you're looking at about $60. So, I mean, again, for an 8-inch tall figure, that's not bad at all, really, for all the other stuff that you're getting included with these figures. Going again, looking at some closer details, a lot of that same pattern work that we saw up at the top here of Flash's collar makes its way in a much larger way down by the waist, or I should say down by the thigh area. A nice combination between the blacks, the dark, almost cranberry reds, and then the lighter shades of red. There's a lot of texturing and a lot of elevated areas to the figure. Like some of the plates here on his legs stick out further than of course, the material underneath, which would be accurate to how it looks in the movie. There's the back area of Flash, which you really don't see a whole lot of in the movie. Primarily, you usually see Flash from the front. You don't really see a whole lot of him from the back because he's always on the go. Here we have sectional components, platelets, all kind of coming together in a makeshift sort of way, giving him his Flash costume. No peg holes on the undersides of his feet. It would be neat if they had actually put like a little wear underneath the soles of his shoes to kind of make it look like, you know, obviously he's been running. That's going to be wearing away here. Some very Flash elements are still carried over from his classic costume. You've got the lightning bolts here on the sides, and that also carries its way into the belt, which is not really even so much lightning as it is more kind of, it's more like a streamlined but still yet gold appearance making its way into the belt. Paint is very clean. I don't seem to have any issues, nor that I can find any issues with the paint applied to the figure itself. In some areas, such as shoulder, I do notice that there's a little bit of additional kind of black that's been added to it. Flash sort of benefits from this by this being a homemade suit, that even any imperfections that you may be able to find on the figure, case in point, say the shoulder area here, you can easily chalk up to the fact that, well, he's made really this costume. I really do, again, like the figure. Don't like the design necessarily, but that can't be a biased, kind of unbiased reasons, or I guess I suppose biased reasons as to why I don't like the figure. I love the way this figure looks. Based on a design in the movie I really, again, don't quite care for. Posability on this guy. We'll go ahead and run through Flash's posability. Now, what's interesting, though, I haven't seen this really with other figure releases. They've sort of cut, on an angle, an articulation point on his head. So he can actually kind of tilt his head while still maintaining posability, regular standard posability in, like, the neck, for example. Normally, most figures really would have had the head as a separate piece, attaching its way to the neck via a ball joint, So you would have obviously seen a sectional part. This would have looked completely separate from the neck underneath it. Very clever from Beast Kingdom that they put the hinge on a cut angle. This still allows you the posability, but it doesn't break up any bit of the mold. It's a smart use of following the existing lines that make up the design of his costume. They've managed to kind of squeeze articulation in there. I think that's pretty clever indeed. The neck still retains its regular posability. They're in fact popping the head off there accidentally, but does prove a point to show you. There's the ball joint right there. Attaches very easily to the neck socket of the head. And we'll just pop that back into place. But he does have full range of motion. I do notice, though, that moving his head a lot, it does, especially bending it backwards, and the head does pop off the ball joint. It's not in any sense a defect to the figure, but it's just simply the way that there's really not a whole lot of clearing happening here from the neck to the torso. Bending the neck back, you're going to start seeing a gap, and the neck is possibly going to pop off on you. So we just pop that back into place. As for the arms of Flash, which I don't know if I touched too much on when we looked at the tactical suit Batman, but he does have these socket joints. The socket joints sit recessed in the areas of the torso, and you can pull them out. You just pop them out like this, and you get some extra range of motion. It allows the arms to get much closer, too close for comfort, too close to the torso, but at the very least it's something that you can't accomplish. Like, you can't pull that off with a lot of figures that simply just have that ball joint, because they have to allot for a gap right there. By pulling out that extra socket, allows you to do some extra cool poses with the figure itself. And then when you're finished, you just simply pop that back into place. The arms hinge out, forward, and back. He does have essentially like a hinge joint forward and back. That's really just by the way the nature of the ball joint there. Flash gets a double hinge on the elbow, but there's not really a whole lot of clearance between the bicep and then the additional plate here on the forearm. It doesn't give you much mileage. There we go. Much mileage to bend the elbow. And I did notice, though, bending the elbow as much as I did pop off the elbow plate right there. Let me just go ahead and retrieve that. For those worried that I actually broke the figure, I didn't. It's this T-shape. Let me just show you right here. It's this T-shape peg, and you just simply take the elbow pad and just pop that in place. It's a little harder, and this is not the first time that this has happened. It is a little on the harder side to get that back into place. But just to show you, though, it's not broken. It's simply just the way it was attached to the arm. And it is possible that when you are bending the arm that's going to happen. It's just because this part of the arm here, if it gets too caught to the elbow pad, you may even want to just kind of hold the elbow pad when you are bending the arm back and forth, just so there's nothing that catches onto it. If any bit catches to the elbow, it just pops right off. As for the hands itself, the hands themselves, they rotate back and forth, they hinge back and forth there. A very generous amount of articulation in the upper torso. Equally said as well, that holds true to the lower waist area. There's a ball joint happening there. And then for the legs, they move forward and back and out. You can also drop down the legs in similar fashion to the other Beast Kingdom releases. Gives you a little bit of a gap there, but allows much more of a range of motion in Flash's leg posability. Also has an upper torso swivel, or upper thigh swivel. Allows the legs to move forward and back. Double hinge on the knee. And then for the foot, as you would certainly hope Flash would possess, a good range of motion on the foot articulation, back and forth. And then he does also have toe articulation there as well. Flash has all the articulation, all the posability one would certainly want to find in a particular figure like this for running poses, and then he has a little bit more on top of that. When looking at figures, it's really hard to not be biased towards the initial feelings that you have about the character's costume. Case in point here is Flash from the Justice League. While I still don't really care for the costume, I do think Beast Kingdom once again has done a great job of giving us a representation of that character in plastic form. 8 inches tall and full of articulation and accessories, Flash really here is a superior release and one of the best examples that I've seen of the Scarlet Speedster. Much like the tactical suit Batman, all of these figures are currently available at your local comic book stores for a rough price point at around $60. Now, I'm saying that only solely from figures I've seen at Canadian stores, and again, that may change depending on where you're finding the figures for yourself, but I do think that they're well worth picking up if you like the characters from Justice League, as well as the Batman v Superman lines that they've already covered as well. I do like the design of Flash, at least from figure form. Even though I don't like the costume as a whole, the figure does look very impressive on a shelf, especially when you start incorporating some of this electricity, which I'm also glad that Beast Kingdom would have included with the figure. Today we were having a look at the Dynamic Action Heroes. This was product code DAH-006, and this was the Scarlet Speedster, the Flash. If you guys haven't had a chance to go back and have a look at some of my other Beast Kingdom reviews, there's a playlist on this channel called Beast Kingdom Reviews. It's the best place that you guys can see all the previous reviews, and all the upcoming reviews will also be found there as well. We're going to have a look at some more of the Justice figure releases, the Justice League figure releases from Beast Kingdom in some upcoming reviews, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, thanks for watching as you always do, guys. I'll see you next time.